Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first official podcast episode of The Girl on the Left. We're going to talk about my personal story today. I am your host for the whole podcast and book anthology project creator, Megan Dirks. And today we're going to go a little deep into me so you can get to know me a little better. And I will also have my own portion of the anthology book as well. Now, I didn't want to talk to myself alone for 30 to 45 minutes and just talk at you guys. So I was able to recruit my lovely friend, Kristen, who is an amazing trusted peer and specializes in trauma and abuse recovery, to kind of be my host and leader today. So I can kind of take the back seat and you guys can get to know me better. Thank you so much for being here, Kristen.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm really excited about this today. Nice way to dive into you.
Yeah. So we're probably going to touch on a little bit of some of my health issues. I was diagnosed at some point in my youth with polycystic ovarian syndrome. If anybody is not aware of that, it's just a not fun lady hormonal condition and imbalance that took up a lot of my time in my teen years and early 20s and all that fun stuff. We'll touch on some video game addiction that I went through, how I built my businesses, how I bounced back and got into the health and wellness space in general, and kind of what I'm looking to do moving forward, I guess. So I will pass this off to Kristen pretty much at this point, and she will fire some questions at me and get a little curious with me, and we will just have fun. Yeah.
Yeah, great. I'm excited. Okay, this is great. You had a quite varied history. I'm really excited to learn more. So why don't we start at the beginning though? How did your undiagnosed polycystic ovarian syndrome impact you as a teenager? And how did it affect different areas of your life?
Yeah. And this is tricky, right? Because it affected everything. And it wasn't diagnosed yet while I was in my teenage years, actually. So I went undiagnosed for a very long time because I just didn't really have the right practitioners or resources around me to understand what was happening to my body. So for me as a teenager, I wasn't getting periods. And that was, she's just a late bloomer. But even beyond the late blooming, they were still not becoming a thing. So that was kind of on the physical health front, just evolving as a woman wasn't really kicking in body wise. And then beyond that, on the emotional level, like I had some concerns about that, of course, like what is kind of going on. And I was getting symptoms of PCOS at that point. So, like male pattern facial hair growth and things like that are not necessarily desirable to young ladies or particularly feminine. I could grow a pretty mean beard if I wanted to within a week. And that all, of course, impacted my self-esteem and self-confidence and kind of body image, no matter how much someone tells you, like, you're beautiful. When you're going through that and you know it's not normal for your gender at that age, and you're also going through puberty and all those feelings, like, it was a lot. And on top of that, I didn't realize, since it was still undiagnosed, that it was affecting my weight a lot as well. That since my hormones were so out of whack and my estrogen and testosterone were so spiky and not at the levels they should be, that I ballooned pretty heavily in weight. And that with that came a lot of depression and amplified the feelings of, confusion, obviously, frustration. There was a point where I was on very strict diets with myself and was still gaining rapid weight. I added going to the gym daily on top of that for a minimum of 2 hours, and I was still ballooning. So at that point, I'm pissed because I'm doing everything air quote right, and I'm doing it to a T. And I'm doing all this research for myself because nobody around me can help me figure it out. And it was a nightmare. I hated it. So, of course, I ended up getting a little reclusive. And that was not a fun time in late teens, early 20s at all.
That sounds so difficult and stressful and, like you say, frustrating. And I'm sure you were really pissed to not know the answers and to be gaining weight no matter what you did and to just feel like you're not feeling like feminine, in a lot of ways. Must have been so hard.
No. And a lot of, obviously, around that age, like a lot of, my friend group and stuff would be starting to date and pair off, and people would be starting to have sex. And I was just like, I'm not in that pile.
Mm-hmm.
Even if people found me attractive, I didn't find me attractive. And I definitely wouldn't have felt comfortable to be that vulnerable with anybody
Mm-hmm.
um, on that level by any means.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense. I'm so sorry. That must have been so hard. So,
Forever.
did it affect you in the other areas of your life, or was that pretty much almost every area, but in what other ways did it affect you?
Yeah. That didn't bleed into too much. Like career and finance kind of sucked at that time as well because I was being so reclusive that there was a solid 2 years of my life that I just lost to escaping into video games and
Mm.
depression to kind
Okay.
of combat that. So there
Mhm.
wasn't any like career progression going on. There wasn't getting anything rolling for like potential college. Finances were tight growing up anyway. And I did hold down jobs as I started working through that, but most of them were through like temp agencies because I was so young still and I didn't have
Mhm.
like a degree yet in anything. So I took kind of what I could get and I got some really good jobs that I got paid a fraction of the cost of what everybody else was earning there because I was a temp
Mhm.
worker.
Right.
So I got like a an internship with the federal government and that was awesome. Everybody around me made like $50 an hour and I made like 12 for the same work.
Oh no.
So that sucked a little bit. And you don't get benefits and you don't get proper vacation and stuff, but you're trying to get a foot in the door and get the hands on experience so that you can get fully onboarded as not a temp worker. So there's always this worth factor of if I give my 120%, they'll keep me or they'll make me a real employee. And then I get
Yeah.
the real money and the real benefits and actual validation for all the work I'm doing, which is the same work that everybody else around me is doing too, which is really frustrating. And that happened in federal government, in provincial or what US would consider state government level as well. And then also in a big like insurance company and in one of the top 5 big banks in Canada. I kept getting in with all these great places. And since you were a temp worker, you were just kind of disposable. So there was always the carrot on a stick of like, we'll hire you if, and then, oh, we have a hiring freeze, or oh, we actually don't need people right now, and oh, your contract's up again. Sorry. And that was a really frustrating process too, which didn't help with any of my confidence in other areas because I'm like, why am I never enough? I must ask for
Exactly.
these people.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
show up, I'm always on time. I do all the little like interny things and bring people coffee. and, and
Hmm.
still, I'm not good enough to just be fully part of the team. So after having that happen like 4 or 5 times in a row, paired with all the health and body confidence stuff already, I was just like, clearly I suck. The universe is screaming at me that I suck.
Mm.
So we'll just keep kind of being depressed about that for a while until something
Right.
gives.
It's so hard when you have those body issues and the worthiness takes you down and you just keep seeing your experience reflecting how you feel inside. And
Yeah,
it's like, oh, see, proof I suck. And so
yeah,
you keep going back and forth in that ping pongy place. And it's
yeah,
understandable that, you're trying to do your best to show them that you're just as good as everyone else, but inside you're really actually not feeling that
yeah,
good, right? And so, you're telling them in some way, on some level, don't give me more money, don't give me more opportunity. I don't really believe I deserve it, right? Does that does
yeah.
that align with how you think you were feeling back then?
Absolutely. Like everything that I felt that I didn't want to believe, I kept going out in the world and it kept being reinforced.
Right.
So at
Exactly.
some point, I'm like, fuck this.
Hmm.
And actually, at the end of my rope with that, um, I ended up in a company I loved doing like internal services and like mailroom management for like a big corporate building. And I had a great friend group there, and they were like, oh, we're going to close this department and all the work's going to go to a different province and they're going to handle it now. So all of you guys are just going to be out of jobs. And everybody else was much older than me and they were going to get severance off. They were going to get packages, right? And I was just going to get cut with nothing. So my boss at the time, God love him, like did have some empathy for me and did find a way to sneak me into another department, which I was very grateful for. So it kept me employed there for a while, but it was kind of like the bottom of the barrel department where you're in the call center and you're never the person that's making someone's day. You're always the person that someone's going to be frustrated with.
Yeah.
So
Annoying them,
yeah, it was health insurance, and some of those claims were really, really tough, right? Like terminal health conditions, and you're saying, oh, sorry, you're not sick enough for us to pay you out. Good luck in life. I hope you don't get evicted. Like, not fun work. And when I got into those kind of harder cases, I was like, this is killing my soul. I hate everything about this. I hate coming here. I hate being the bad guy to all of these people on the phone that are just trying to live their life. I had claims where there was a lady calling in. Her husband had died. He was the primary policy holder. And she was like, I need my benefits paid out for like spousal survival benefits and for her and her kids to keep going without him. And I wasn't allowed to pay it out to her because I wasn't allowed to tell her that I could see on the back end he had switched them off of his policy intentionally and put a mistress on.
Oh no.
And I'm seeing all these things and I can't disclose anything to her because she's no longer on the policy. And I'm trying to get this across to her without saying it to her because I'm not allowed to. So I'm just repeating like, ma'am, I'm so sorry. I'm not able to help you. You are not on the policy.
Like, right. Like,
please get it.
Oh.
Yeah. So that was one of the cases where I was like, you know what? There was one case after that, and I didn't put in a 2-week notice. That was the first job. I did not give a fuck. I'm like, everything here is horrible. I cannot keep being this person. This is not fulfilling work. I just went over to my supervisor at the end of one of my shifts, and I'm like, I will not be back. I'm sorry. And that was it. They were like, do you really want to burn that bridge? And I was like, I think I can soak burning this bridge. Like, I think I will live with no reference. Yeah. So yeah, that was how that was affecting all of like career and finance life too. So at that point, I just called it quits with that and went back to being home and depressed about everything.
Is that, you mentioned video game addiction. Is that around the time that you were playing video games and, what role did they play in your life at that time?
Yeah. So on the early end, they totally consumed me for 2 years. And that was a shift out of high school early. I did leave high school early and that kind of took over at that point. I didn't really have a clear direction. I didn't know what was happening to me. And I started playing online games. And I started off playing World of Warcraft on like a trial. And then I paid $20 a month to keep playing it. And in my head, I was justifying it. I'm like, a lot of my friends are going downtown and like getting drunk and blowing $200 a night. And I pay $20 to do this one thing, which, is pretty practical. So at the same time, it was starting to fulfill all the needs that I wasn't getting fulfilled in real life. So I was good at things in there and the world was telling me I sucked at everything pretty much. And I had direction there. I knew like what to do. And there was, goals and metrics to hit that I could hit. And then there was new ones to go after too. So there always was this constant sense of fulfillment and achievement. And beyond that, it was a game that had a full economy to it. So I had a social circle all of a sudden, and it was fantastic. And many of those people are people that I am still friends with to this day that are scattered across the globe that I met in 2008. And the thing about developing those friendships was that there wasn't a visual connection. So we would talk over audio or we would talk over text. and get to know each other. And when you're someone that's playing things like that for maybe like 6 to 12 hours a day or more in some cases, then you really get to know each other and you know each other's family and neighbors and struggles and all of the things. So we
Mm.
would celebrate birthdays and we would have like online parties and people cared about me.
Yeah.
And I had a place of belonging where while I was struggling with all these image issues with myself, that layer wasn't there to be judged on. So
Mm.
I knew for damn sure that the people that were friends with me for the right reasons. The
Mm.
people that wanted to talk to me for hours a day genuinely wanted to talk to me for hours a day. And I didn't have to worry about any of the other insecurity parts. And it was awesome on that front.
Wow. So that was it
Um,
was like a coping strategy really for helping you
yeah.
feel like better and more connected, right? It sounds like.
Yeah, I had a job within the game and I had a team within the game that was dependent on me. So I had a sense of belonging and community. I had all these friends when my friends in real life had shifted into being like very kind of girly, catty teenage bitches, frankly,
Mm.
that
Hmm.
I did not want to associate with anymore either. So um, all of these things started shifting into online. Online, I knew how to make money and I could make money in my game and I was rich in my game. In real life, I was broke as shit. So
Oh, so
literally
interesting.
every
Mm.
pillar of life was, I was thriving in there. And then anytime I logged out, I went back to not being in pretty much
Mm.
any arena of life. So obviously, over time, there's a pull to the thing that makes you feel good. And
Right.
you don't want to spend as much time feeling like a failing sack of shit.
Right. Yeah. It feels
So,
better to be in that fantasy than in the
yeah,
reality of life, right? So
no.
at what point did you realize you were becoming an addict, a video game addict?
I mean, I think I knew right away. I mean, there's definitely when you're in your teenage years and you like don't have any responsibilities or things to do really, like it's common to overdose on some kind of interest. So for me, it ended up being that. And I felt half decent about that because I'm like, at least I have a social circle and at least I have like soft skills that I'm building here. And at least there's something going on instead of just like doing drugs in the back alley or getting pregnant or like all of the common parent concerns, right?
Mm.
Not to diminish the fact that like I was obviously having very real problems and not really an outlet to solve any of them. So I was just going deeper and deeper in that. At some point, that obviously kind of came to a head, and I had to bounce myself out and like try to find a job or some kind of thing. And I ended up finding like a youth support program for like people with challenges.
Mm.
And it was a bottle recycling depot. So like the place you take your refundables to and you get your money back a bit. That
Wow.
was my first job. And when I went in, it was like, it was hardcore. And I did not know this. It was a 6 month work term, paid. And they were going to support you and give you skills. And they trained you on like cash and customer service and just like basics for life. And I'm like, okay, this will be a good starting point. And I go in for the interview, and it's super intimidating because I had no idea that that program was really designed for like youth that had been involved with like crime and some heavy shit, like stabbed somebody and was like taking heroin and cocaine. And I'm here and I'm like, I have my video game problem and I hate myself. Am I eligible?
Oh. They're like, come on in. No, I was kidding.
And they were like, yeah, like your problems are valid. Like you don't really fit the mold of what we have going on here, but they heard like the desperation in my voice. I'm like, I need a chance at something.
Mm. Hmm.
And I don't have a degree yet to get in the door somewhere good. And I need a start. Just like, please employ me.
Yeah.
And they did. So I had a pretty good crew there as well. And then I was starting to learn to balance like the gaming was still a draw for all the social circle that I established there, and also just fun and relaxation. But I was able to do it and hold a job at least. And that continued through all those shitty temp jobs as well, where it was like, okay, go to the shitty temp job, go home, talk to friends as much as possible to get a boost because everything else still sucks. And
Yeah.
then just roll like that for a while and hope something gives somewhere. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Wow, so interesting. And so how long were you with that place before went into, you went through your whole wellness journey,
Yeah.
maybe simultaneously at this point, and then it looks like you turned all this into a career as a coach. What was like that journey like for you from this to
Yeah.
that kind of thing?
Really weird because we start at like bottle exchange and then we go into all those like corporate federal temp jobs that I was able to springboard into from there. And I got really lucky with some good mentors that got me into some good programs. And they were just never places that stuck, unfortunately. So
Mm-hmm.
that part sucked. But beyond that, then I'm looking and I'm still, depressed as shit. And I'm still starting to consider dating a bit, at least a little. And there was definitely, some times where I took some more jobs that I didn't really want to take. And then I took some jobs that actually helped my confidence. And I ended up in a position where I was able to move in with a roommate and I felt comfortable to start dating. So that was good. We're making progress.
Yeah.
We're
Okay.
still really unhappy with ourselves overall. Still don't know about the PCOS diagnosis fully or what's going on with that. But I did start to unravel that because it did start turning into really unhealthy eating disorders that were starting to develop. Um,
Mm.
because I'm like, okay, if I'm eating everything perfect and I'm really restricted calories and I'm doing all this working out and nothing's changing, then let's just not eat. That'll do it, right?
Mm. Right.
And then when we have to eat, we'll just purge a little, but we won't get
Mm.
bulimic. We'll just do it a little, like
Okay. Okay.
situationally, like
Yeah.
Thanksgiving dinner or something.
Yeah. Something big, right?
Yeah, like when we have the big birthday cake or something really, I don't know, important or bad.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
there was strategically that was starting to get laced in, and I knew I'm like that's not a good road, but it felt like my only last line of defense at that point.
Mhm.
So we got a little bit of that going on. And
Okay.
then at the same point, we're still going up in weight. And we're like, okay,
Mm.
come
Oh
on.
no.
And at this point, I meet this guy that I met online and we kind of hit it off and we moved in together. And he loved me for me, which was fantastic. And I hadn't really expected to experience that with how much I hated myself at the time and everything I was still confused by. So he was a really great support. And at that time, like I'm still in this point where I'm still all resource mode and I'm digging and I'm researching how to crack the code on this. And it's still not really working. So we're living together. We're doing good. He's like supporting me to pull around like my career and stuff and encouraging me to go to college. And we're willing to financially support that. And all these things are like starting to kind of get good. But I'm still really just unhappy with me. So there comes a tipping point where we ended up living together and working on a lot of skills based stuff. I do go to college for digital art and design, which I've always freelanced and dabbled in anyway. And
Mm-hmm.
that was something that I was so pumped about. Had a really specialized private college. They went under within a month of me getting started. I did the whole thing. I got the student loans that I was terrified to take out because I was in such a like scarcity mindset with money. I get onboarded. I'm super smart with my loan money. And then like our main two teachers leave our course. And we're like, that's not good. And we're like, who's going to teach us? And all these other kids I was in with, I'm a little older at this point. I'm coming in my like, I don't know, 22, 23, and they're coming in at 18 fresh. And I'm panicking. I'm like, this is not okay or good. And no one else is panicking because they're all in on their parents' money. And I'm in on my own money. And I was like, I don't want to throw $30,000 away and get locked into that and not even have teachers or know what's going to happen. So I ended up withdrawing. I gave them like the full timeline. We had like 60 days to get our money back and pull out from our start date. And I waited until like day 59. They did not have a replacement for our instructors, and I was out. I was like, I'm not letting that click over. So
Yeah.
while I didn't get to complete that program that I wanted to, it did spark a lot of creativity in me. And I did start self-teaching myself a lot of career skills off of that. So I did know that's what I wanted to go for industry-wise and creativity-wise. And I was like, maybe I'll just self-teach myself a lot of that. So I started picking up way more skills and designing websites for local businesses and business cards for people and stuff. And then I started building a portfolio off that. So I'm like, okay, I have some stuff going. And at the same time, all the health stuff is still really pissing me off. And I still feel like a failure on that. So this has been probably, I don't know, 5 to 7 years now at this point, like 14 to early 20s or something. And I still don't know what's going on with me. So I get pissed off and I start having a lot of self-hate issues, and everything just kind of fueled itself, right? Like the more depressed I was, the more I emotionally ate. The more I emotionally ate, the more I felt like shit. The more I felt like shit, the more I beat myself up. And that was just not a fun loop. So this eventually gets to health and wellness because I developed this thing in my head, even when I was living with my partner, and he was really supportive, that if I hit 250 pounds, that I had some suicidal tendencies and plans at that point. And leading into that, like, I'm creeping into the 240s and we're getting kind of close and we're still trying our best and it's still going up. So I remember one of my pivotal moments kind of being like, I stepped on the scale and I was 249. And I'm like, shit. According to my logic, I'm supposed to be suicidal in 1 more pound. So that scared the crap out of me because, of course, like, I don't actually want to die. I don't actually want to kill myself. I like life. And I have a lot of things I want to do. I'm a big visionary person. So I was like, okay, alternate ideas. Maybe we don't do that, but it's definitely the time to figure this the fuck out. And I hunted down doctors and the right medical practitioners and finally found one that could diagnose me properly, could run my labs properly, could help me understand my blood work. And I searched far and wide to get the right people on board at that point, and then became actually aware of what was going on with me and actually learned how to get it under control. Now, there was a lot of guinea pigging in that process, on and off medications and trying different things. Some things that do work for some people don't work for others, but long story short, I did kind of crack my code and kicked off this. Unfortunately, it was like almost a decade too late of all these symptoms manifesting for me. So I was actually recommended bariatric surgery, even though I was so young, and not a very invasive one, but I was recommended a vertical gastric sleeve to get it under control. So they didn't have that locally where I lived. There was like one guy that did that like a couple times a year, or maybe he'd do like a mommy makeover or something, but we didn't really have like reconstructive or plastics or bariatric anything in my area. So I'm like, okay, what do we do now? And what we do now is we go find a practitioner that understands our condition and the situation we've landed in, and we go to them, which for me ended up not being within Canada, not being within the neighboring United States, but it actually ended up being in Mexico. And I found an amazing reconstructive surgeon that was able to support the duration of my wellness journey pretty much. So I went down there once and my partner came with me and I got that procedure done, the vertical gastric sleeve. And that did definitely, it provided a tool for my body to respond and realize like we need to catch up and we need to get this under control. So
Mm.
with that, armed with that now, I could go back to clean eating. I could go back to working out. And guess what? It fucking works now.
Wow. That's amazing.
And how gratifying that was to actually like know I wasn't crazy the whole time and that I was doing everything right. And that was just like an underlying layer that I didn't know about blocking it all. So suddenly we're super empowered. We're like, we've gone to
Mm.
like, let's maybe off ourselves to we can do fucking anything. And
Yeah.
that was really great because I did stay super consistent for like a solid year and a half. And I did lose over 120 pounds in that process.
Mm.
So
Amazing.
awesome.
Yeah.
And
Congratulations.
then, thank you. Um, on the back of that, there's so many sacrifices still happening, like socially and financially, because of course, like these procedures cost me money since I had to go away from home to get them done.
Mm.
Um, and I'm in my early 20s with barely a career. So, like my dabbling freelancing. So, there was a lot of doubling down to be able to afford those at that age range for sure. That's not a lot of things that most people in their 20s would need to be faced with financially. And over the course of 5 years, that ran me almost $100,000. Um,
Mm. Wow.
and I worked my ass off, multiple jobs, very disciplined, trying to keep it under control because they were spaced out. But I knew by the time I was pretty much paying one off, there was another one on the horizon.
Mm.
And why this happened was because nobody told me that sometimes after a massive weight loss journey, that you end up with pounds and pounds of excess skin that can get infected and turn necrotic in
Mm.
some cases.
Mhm.
And I was pretty pissed about that too. I
Ugh.
didn't know that I would be trading problems for problems essentially that were now like urgent medical things I had to address.
Mm.
So now we have a timeline on a whole new set of things. And to be clear, like I'm open to getting this excess skin off me because I don't like pounds of stuff hanging and flabbing that clearly is dead and not really part of my body anymore. So that was still affecting my image and confidence around like sex, obviously, where now like technically I'm much healthier and much more slender and confident, but I do have all these like hanging folds and I'm stuffing skin into my pants and that's not sexy or empowering either.
Mm.
So um so we kind of switched the weight for the skin and then when you deal with the skin, and that was the process that I did return and travel for to work on over the course of like 5 years until it was all
Mm.
gone. And that was just really frustrating because I could never get enough time, pockets of time to get settled enough in a career or a new role before I'm back in for surgery. And then I'm recovering
Mm.
for a couple months. And now I need to
Right.
pay off the surgery, but I don't have a reliable job because no one's going to like hang around while you need like 3 months off once a year.
Mhm.
So,
True.
yeah.
Yes.
So,
Mhm.
incredibly frustrating process that didn't wrap up for me until like 2020. And
Mm.
that was pretty much the last time I had to deal with that on a level that I couldn't support and was unexpected. And I was really like too young to handle, frankly. Um, and then at that point, coming out of that, I'm all on the wellness train because my mental, my physical has bounced back. I can focus on these other areas of life now. And that is when I got into my coaching credentials. Um,
Mm.
this is
Yeah.
amazing. Let's do something that keeps me in this world so that I don't slide back ever and ruin all the work that I've done for myself and all the things that I've paid for. And let's do it in a way that also I'm serving others and I'm able to give back so nobody has to go through what I went through. Um, that was my goal for sure.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
I
That's
know
amazing. Go ahead. Sorry. I don't want to
I
interrupt
was
you.
going to say, I know you and I went to essentially the same school. We both went for our dual certifications of life and health coaching at Health Coach Institute. And that is where I will be eternally grateful that I got my start. And beyond that program, I went to the mastery version of that as well. I dabbled in some other modalities and picked up some other credentials as well. And that was, that's how we ended up in health and wellness from all
Wow.
of the previous crap.
It makes so much sense to me that you would just be on this journey to this amazing health coaching career. And I wanted to say one of the things that you said that 250 pounds, I was definitely going to have suicidal thoughts and, consider that. And how instead you got a quick reframe and a wake up call on the
Yeah.
249, right? It's like, oh, I don't
Yeah.
want to die. I want to live. It's like in 2012, they said it's the end of the world. Well, it's the awakening of the world, right? It's like the start of a new
Yeah.
world. It's like this is your start of your new world to find the answers for this and
Yeah.
get you on that health journey. So I think that's really amazing. Obviously, I'm very happy that you're here with us and that is all worked out. But now, you have run 2 coaching practices now, right?
I have, yes.
And
Yeah.
how has your coaching work evolved, and what impact do you hope to make with your clients?
Yeah. So first coaching business, very cliche, very let me help the people with what I struggled with. So video game addiction was my first
Mm,
practice. I wanted to help gamers. I wanted to help gamers get to the healthy place where you don't need to quit. You can still enjoy, your pastime and the social life that comes with that and, all the benefits you enjoy, the pluses, but also still have a balance and be taking care of your basics and not ignore your finances and have some healthy habits, get some sleep, all the good things too. That's really what I wanted for people.
mm,
Um, the more I kind of dug into that work, I crafted some signature programs around it and some online. I would do online streaming on Twitch, which is a platform very popular for gamers, and do a mix of gaming while talking health and wellness too, and kind of bring that element into it. So I did build an audience and a community there, and it was really good. It's I ran into some challenges, and they were mainly that many gamers are young and struggling with that, same age range as me, like 30, 35 range and under, dominantly are the generations that grew up gaming. So we're the ones that struggle with it the most typically. And while there are people that can afford it that are older, kind of young adults or established adults, most of them are youth that do not have money for support or resources. So I realized pretty quickly that I'm like, this is more of a passion of mine than something that can support my bread and butter and
mm,
keep me afloat. So it wasn't too long before I started kind of shifting that into more of a nonprofit mentality where I wanted it to be more that business model, not one that I relied on for like a main salary for myself, but still something I wanted to give back to. So at this point, I've essentially retired that practice, but I do still go to like video game conventions and I do still speak and do panels on health and wellness. And I feel like I am or was at the time and still for now a very good age range to kind of bridge between kids and parents for gaming. So
mm,
I'm 30 ish, smack dab between like the 50 parents and the like teenagers pretty much, and can relate to both pretty easily.
mhm.
So that's kind of where I worked with that, where I do still like to support it on a community level, but not as much for my main practice. So well, my other problem was parents would just come to me and try to throw money at me and be like, fix my kid, make them quit. and
Mhm,
there was a lot of parent education that had to happen there too, because there are a lot of positives that I would still advocate for gaming. Even now, like very lucrative jobs come out of gaming as an interest. If your
mhm.
kid is interested in Minecraft, they will probably develop an interest in programming, which is easily a six-figure job
Right.
and a real job, right?
Mhm,
So same with art and anything else, but also a reminder that, it's so big of an industry now that it has every department under the sun. So sales, human resources, you name it. Like it needs it all too. There are a lot of valid spaces there. And there are, in the same way that many of us see like Instagram influencers getting paid sponsorships to post about body lotion and sugar scrubs and shoes, there are many kids that are getting paid insanely good money to be good at the games that they play. And that's valid too. That can fund college, folks.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I do still advocate for that pretty strongly. But again, it wasn't really what I wanted my main practice to be full-time permanent. So I did shift back into the whole, failed digital art situation from closed college. And I sharpened my skills again on branding and marketing because that was what I had beforehand. So now I run Brand Boss Coaching, and that does everything under the sun pretty much for new coaches that are trying to be, solopreneurs essentially, and trying to wear all the hats and trying to build a foundation for themselves. But they don't know what they offer. They don't know how to message and actually convey what they offer in a way that people will want to hear or buy. And also the visual identity that we create to pair with that as well. So everything between logo, business cards, presentation decks, if they're, speaking and stuff like that, full websites, the whole social media kit, whatever. Helping people present their identities, because so many entrepreneurs are amazing at the thing they specialize in and suck at marketing.
Mm-hmm. Amen to that.
So for me, I already had a portfolio of websites. I already knew how to do this stuff. And I could bring in the mindset piece now and the habits for blending business coaching with it too. So my two favorite things have come together into my most thriving practice now. And I love what I do. I really do.
Amazing. You're so good at it. So this is a long journey for you, but you've come to a great place, I think. But so what are your thoughts on coaching versus therapy, and like why did you decide on doing the coaching versus therapy?
Solid question, because I did research all of it, being a crazy researcher person. And mainly the takeaway I had even at the time, like 5 years ago now, was that coaching is more present based focused and future goal focused, and therapy is more unpacking a lot of past issues. They both absolutely have their place. For me, as someone that's a very kind of take action, get down to business girl, I wanted something where I was giving people very tangible goals and wins to kind of keep them going. And coaching for me also had the perception of obviously less time for credentials compared to therapy and a full psychology degree. I felt behind because of the whole health journey, lack of career setback for my 20s, that I felt I needed something like accelerated to jump in. So when I picked HCI as my school, I was like, okay, this is a very thorough, very in-depth 6-month program with the opportunity of another 1.5 years to go even deeper. So it's like 2 years. It's like an associate's or something, right? And all custom tailored to exactly what I want to do. So I felt like that was like good enough education to definitely pair with everything else I had going on and be, valid and respectable and not seen as some like flaky guru type person. So we went with that because we didn't have 4 years to kill when we're kind of starting at a blank canvas again.
Okay, that's interesting. That, and you definitely got a good education through HCI. I know that one myself. So yeah, that's awesome. So okay, so kind of switching gears a little bit. So you have the Girl on the Left podcast, and what inspired the creation of this?
So the Girl on the Left podcast is a companion to the Girl on the Left book, which is coming out next year, and I'm very excited about. And the whole concept of this, was really funny because people have asked me, like, why this? Where did it come from? And for me, the best way I've been able to articulate it is it's a blend of, if you remember old chicken soup for the soul books.
Mm-hmm.
And those crossed with like the modern day Instagram scrolling, shiny before and after transformations, and kind of marrying the two of those together. My whole concept was essentially I hated old me for a very long time. I did not look back on her lovingly. She was weak, she was fat, she was ugly, she was not figuring it out. And there was a very long process I went through where it took me a long time. I did not want to be associated with her in any way or admit that she existed as part of my journey. So for me, you're looking at before and afters, and it's always the left, and she's always like the and
Okay.
not the shiny version of you. And then you post your after, and it's like this amazing sparkly transformation. And it's like, look how fucking awesome I am now compared to that. And while I agreed and subscribed to that for a long time, I never officially posted my before and after of my journey ever publicly. And I was in a ton of like weight loss support groups and surgery aftercare groups where everybody was doing that. And I did not, because I could not bring myself to post her side by side with me now. So I had some friends that kind of nudged me on that. And it really, eventually I end up at this reframe the more I do like inner work and shadow work and self-development work, that I end up realizing like, shit, I have to like her. She got me here.
Yeah.
And that kind of sparked this whole idea that I've been brewing for 2 or 3 years now with this book. That is a collection of a bunch of us acknowledging the past versions of ourselves and putting the focus on that instead of the over filtered, look how perfect I am now version of us. And, we're always a work in progress. We're never done, but there's still a lot of transformation when anyone posts the before and after, right? And I just felt like it was time to kind of flip the script on the project and put the focus on our earlier versions of ourselves.
Oh, it's beautiful. So it sounds like you've had to embrace your own past in order to become who you are today, right?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, I had to accept her.
Mm.
And that was something I struggled with for at least 2, 3 years for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was only, she's never been posted publicly. And I had one partner I did my mastery, like advanced coaching work with. And she encouraged me to, and I didn't. I shared it with her and nobody else. And aside from that, there's only one other human in the world that was amazing romantic partner of mine that I shared with him and felt safe enough to not be like judged or mocked. And yeah, those are the two people in the world that have seen that.
Hmm. Will that be something that you will share with the world more, or is that going to happen? Or
Yes.
is that something I'm going to? Okay. Okay.
that
Well,
is something that is something I am committed to making a part of my chapter in The Girl on the Left. Yes, is a full before and after visual of myself too. So that's a big step for me, but
yeah.
it's also not that big of a deal at the end of the day, right? Like it's
Well,
funny how much we blow it up.
mm,
Um, it's only that big of a deal because I've made it. I've given it life for like multiple years. So,
yeah. Yeah. I bet once you do
yeah.
it, you'll be like, oh, wasn't so bad. But yeah, it's getting through that
Yeah.
part. That's the hardest.
Yeah. Or like, oh, yeah, that's not the end of the world. And not everybody's ridiculing me and like laughing at the post as a reaction.
Oh no.
All
Yeah.
these nightmare scenarios you have in your head.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
I
like
know
self-defeating.
realistically, yeah, it would never actually be that. It was always just me within myself that was the
Yeah.
issue.
Yeah. It's always
Yeah.
like that. But well, oh, I'm excited. I'm excited for it. So, so as you've grown and evolved, how has your vision for contributing to the greater good shifted?
Yeah, because I'm a huge greater good person. Whatever you want to call it, if you're, more religious or spiritual, or for me, it's more humanitarianism and like give back. What are you doing for the world? And my start of it is definitely this project. I want this to inspire other women. I want to give my contributors to this project a space to like fully share stories they have never really shared and have a very open space to do that. And the idea is, of course, with all change work, is that we create a ripple effect and other women read this or become aware of this or listen to the podcast episodes or whatever. And if they're kind of in the thick of their crap, that they're like, oh yeah, I can relate to that. And they got through it and they're doing that now. And that's really the effect I want to have. On top of that, I do have some social impact stuff I want to do with this as well. So there will be ways that people can sponsor the book. And by doing so, we will donate like 5 copies to like women's shelter or school of their choice. That's something I'm really excited for. And beyond that, I do want this to be a bit of a movement. And I want it to also be something that, while there are some heavy themes in some of the stories as well, I think they're important themes. And I do want it to be something that can bridge amazing conversations between mothers and daughters too, like early.
Sure.
Early to avoid some shit.
Yeah. Oh, gosh, your vulnerability. And this is so amazing. It's touching me so much. Thank you so much for sharing all this. So what advice would you give to others who do feel stuck, whether in their health or their career, relationships? And they're trying to move forward.
There's so many, right? Like there's so many nuggets of things. And there's so many like trendy buzzwords right now too, with kind of self-development blowing up, I guess, and becoming like cool, and therapy becoming cool now.
Yeah.
The 2 that worked the best for me that I think are the most impactful are, if you don't want to do something, it's probably the thing you should be doing. Probably. And going against the grain with that, with anytime I had nerves or anytime I felt uncomfortable with something, if I put myself in that space, something good usually did happen. Or I did move myself forward instead of staying inside my little box, right? So getting comfortable, being uncomfortable, really important. Really, really important. And other than that, just stay curious. Even if they're problems, like get curious about, with me, with my health, it was like, what is happening to my body and why? And how can it's that thing. What does that do scientifically? And how does it play into, the more you dig around, the more you learn about your challenges and the easier you can solve them because you're way more armed, right? So if you can just stay curious with what you're going through, and if you can keep kind of edging yourself just out of that comfort zone box, I think people can make a lot of progress for sure.
It's amazing. I like that. Yeah. Get uncomfortable. Get out of your comfort zone sometimes, right? Go to the edge. I like that. So, okay. I have one more question for you. Okay.
Okay.
This is the question you've been giving everyone for this project. Okay. Ready?
Yes.
When you look back on your past self, what did she teach you that you still carry with you today?
See, I knew this was coming, but I'd say hands down self-assurance. I had a lot of self-assurance from an early age because I had to dig so much. So anytime, for as low as confidence that I had in a lot of areas, I know I can make shit happen now because I've proven it like 20 million times in this process. That let's hunt around, let's figure out a thing. Okay, let's do that thing. Okay, great. Now I know that was, you build so much confidence every time you give yourself the power to do something, and then you actually execute it. And then the next time you go to do something, it's a little less intimidating, right? So I feel like I've done that so many times at this point that barely anything phases me, frankly. And even with this project, I'm like, yeah, we can do this in 6 months. Why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we be able to break it down and do it in 6 months? Sure. And I do have full confidence that in 6 months we will have this book launched and it will be awesome.
Oh my gosh. Yes. I'm sure you will make it happen. You are so resilient and so resourceful and smart. And I love that. I love your vulnerability, and the story is very, very good. And thank you so much for sharing this today. I really, really appreciate it. And I'm just so glad to know you better. So I'm sure your audience is just going to be thrilled to know too. So good for you. This is amazing. Thank you.
I really want to appreciate you for being here and jumping into, because I did want someone that was vaguely neutral to the project, but that I did have a rapport with and I knew had some experience podcasting too. So thank you so much for kind of guiding me through this process and kind of getting me to open up, because it was so much better than me just talking to the blank abyss
Yeah. Well, I'm glad. Thank
and
you for
wrangling.
asking me. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for asking me. I really am honored to be here. So thank you.
Yeah, and I want to give a shout out to Kristen as well, because she is also an amazing coach, specializes in trauma and abuse recovery for people, which is such needed and important work. So if you want to do a little shout out for yourself, please by all means tell us what you got going on lately too, Kristen.
Oh my gosh. Well, I am in my trauma and abuse coaching. I love to help people through narcissistic abuse. I'm also a health coach as well, since I went to the same school as Megan, as she mentioned. And so I like to help people through their trauma. My company is called Blooming Into You. And so what the idea is to get you past that trauma and or abuse situations and patterning and on to a new, healthier life that you really want to be living, get you unstuck from the past and moving toward the future in a like a healthier and happier way. And yeah, it's fun. And I'm thinking about starting another podcast. So wish me luck, everyone. Megan's going to help me
I
with
can't
that.
wait to listen. Yes, I will. And I can't wait to listen to it too. Um, Beyond that, guys, anybody listening, every episode of the Girl on the Left podcast from here on out will be me hosting the other contributors that are going to be a part of our book. And I likely won't be introducing myself much, because it's a personal kind of premise for me that this is really the space for my guests to shine. So the focus will definitely be on them. But I am glad that we got to know each other a little better today. And I am Megan Dirks, and I do run Brand Boss Coaching, and I am also the creator of The Girl on the Left. So I can't wait to keep bringing it to life and see where it grows. So thank you again so much, Kristen, for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks.